everybody. Welcome back to the Realest People in Real Estate podcast, where we talk about the real shit and not about real estate. I'm one of your hosts, Brooke Jones, aka the Millennial Agent.
Hey, what's up, guys? I'm Tyra Nicole.
Hey, everybody. I am Nicole Pay, and today we have a local team leader for one of the largest teams in the state of Michigan for Mark Z Real Estate Experts. And then nationally, you have an incredible team of over 3,000 agents. Mr. Curt, thank you so much for being with us today.
Welcome.
Also, AKA, we're going to throw the AKA, the Agent Whisperer. We're going to throw that in there.
Okay.
Because that's in there too. So thank you so much for being with us. We're going to get drinks going soon, but we'll go ahead and get started. Everybody knows Curt. We know Curt. Everyone knows Curt, Mark Z. But we want to know the real Curt. So you tell us a little bit about what is Curt outside of real estate.
Believe it or not, I'm about as normal, natural guy as
I find that hard to believe.
Anybody else, and I get that a lot of like you are, we have I coach and train agents cross country and have a blast doing it, love it. Run a huge team, so I have a huge success with that. And then I've got this team across the country, over 3,000 agents, and really blessed to have all that. And it's a really neat thing. I get asked a lot because I have a training call I do every morning at 7:30 in the morning, right, local time here.
Mm-hmm.
I have agents from across the country. I have agents in LA that are on this call, in San Diego they're on this call, which is 4:30
4:30 their time, yeah.
And these people, and I make them bring the energy. So I bring it, right? 'Cause I can't request it unless I'm going to do it.
Right.
So I have to be up, ready to roll, and bring full, massive energy at 7:30 a.m.
Where do you get all that energy?
I was just going to say that. Because Tyra's got a Tyra on the track that let's get motivated. We're going to be in the studio recording one day. We might have to send it to you because it might help you.
All right, here's my secret.
Or help it.
Yeah, what is it?
Right?
Yeah.
People do the cold plunges, and I know we were kind of talking about that offset. Well, I do the cold shower plunge. So I start off with a warm shower because I can't get a cold shower. But I typically, 4 days a week, I do go to the gym now because I'm getting old and I got to stay in shape, right? And rounds of shape, right? So we're going to go with that. So the cool part is I do that. So I go to the gym and I have a trainer to keep me on track because I don't know what the heck I'm doing. So I lift stuff the right way and do the exercises right. Then what happens is from there, I get home and I take a shower and I start off with a hot, warm shower and then I just turn it back like we were talking about.
Yep.
So then it gets to it's very cold. So I try to make sure I'm washing my hair and such. I'm just thankful at my age I still have hair. So I get to wash it. And then I use
with cold water?
With cold water. So I use the cold water because it gets cold in a hurry. It's kind of a Gary Brecka thing. If you follow Gary Brecka, you understand this. So you do 3 minutes staying in as cold as you can stand shower. So I start off hot and I wean it back till it's cold. So I get out of that. That really gets you going.
That gets you going.
During that time, I role play my day. So I role play my training call. I role play what I'm going to say. I role play what we're going to talk about. And I do this. And by doing that, it prepares me for that call. So I'm already kicking my own ass on that call.
Right.
And I do this every morning and drive my wife completely nuts. And she's usually up by the time I get home and do this stuff. And she laughs. And sometimes she'll be like, wow, you really kicked your ass on that call today. Huh? And I ain't got on the call
Does she listen to your calls? Is she?
She has no choice.
Okay.
Because I'm on it live, and so
so she's right there with you.
So she has to hear it. Yeah. So she hears it, and I do, and so that's what I do. So I get prepared. So I come ready to go because I've already played out the worst possible scenarios that I can get into. So I'm pretty juiced. I'm pretty fired up, and I can bring it. So I get asked a lot, how the heck do you come with all this energy? How are you happy and excited? One,
so what time do you start your day in the morning then?
I get up around 5:15, 5:20.
Okay. We've talked about that, like trying to start our days earlier and earlier every day.
Oh, I like to sleep. I didn't like getting up that early.
Yeah. So have you always been like that where you able to have all that energy like that, or did you just learn to do that?
I don't sleep for a long period of time. And so like at night, like I work all day and I'm always in it, right? So you're always in it, you're always thinking. So my brain doesn't stop. So is that a curse or a gift? I don't know. But I have
it's a double-edged sword.
Yep.
It is, right?
It is.
It's a gift, it's a curse. So my brain doesn't shut off and it's always thinking of different things. So I get the ability to really visually see things and I try to play them out of my head and I think about them so I don't stop. And what happens is at night, my wife's a normal person, so she gets tired by midnight, right? So
midnight, geez, I'm like 8:39.
Yeah, she likes to watch the news.
Okay,
so
like
10
midnight.
o'clock news is kind of her thing.
That's her thing.
And so I try to oblige and get the news on. So I find the news to be one of the most depressing things you can watch.
Oh yeah, for sure.
One of the greatest things that happened in the last 5 years, and I know when it started, I started being able to eliminate all the negative things in my circle of my world, because I can control and you can control you. That's all you can control. We like to believe we control everybody else. You cannot.
Right.
You can control you. You can control how you think. You can't control how you feel. So don't make a mistake of that. You feel how you feel, right? Because our heart decides things, our mind justifies them.
Yeah.
Right?
We've talked about that before on the show. The subconsciousness of like
always
a huge subconscious always kind of tells you what you're not what you're supposed to, but your decisions like that you make in the subconscious mind.
You decide what you do,
Yeah.
and you decide how you react to things. 'Cause life is going to throw things at you every day,
Right.
right? And it's coming, like it or not. You have to be prepared for it. And now how can you prepare for things that you don't know? You can't, but you can be prepared for knowing I'm going to have things that are going to come to me today that I don't know. But the great news is I can decide how I react to
it.
Right?
So Curt, you were on a show recently, correct?
The TV show? Yeah.
A TV show.
Yep.
And you talk a little bit about how things were thrown at you. You know, I've been able to hear your story. It's super inspiring, but I would love for everybody else to be able to hear your story. So if you feel comfortable with it, would you be open to sharing what you talked about on the show
about that.
and your experience on the show?
Yeah, the show was really great. It's a show that's going to be aired on Amazon Prime.
Okay.
So pretty excited about it.
We're gonna plug it.
Honestly,
Are you gonna plug it? Like, what's the name of the show?
The show is called My Story.
Okay.
That's the actual name
We're
of the
gonna
show.
plug it.
Yeah, it's a Nick Nanton TV show, and he does a lot of shows. This guy's won 22 Emmys for his documentary series shows. He does documentaries and shorts. And so he's got this show called My Story. So I was honored enough to be on it, and it was pretty cool. They give you the questions. We're going to ask you these things. And what happens is you prepare for, okay, I got these things. They tell you, this whole show is an hour. It's going to get edited to about 12 minutes.
Yeah.
And you're just like, how am I going to tell my life story in 12 minutes?
Yeah,
right? You guys, we're all, we know each other very well. So we're much more friendly and open with each other about what goes on. So you guys know a lot more of my story. And the interesting thing I get a lot, even when I was in Real Producer Magazine, they did an article on me, and it was about a miracle job, because I talk about that a lot. Real estate can be a miracle job, and people are like, what is that? And that goes to my story. Well, my story isn't a boo-hoo-hoo story of, everybody has perseverance and loss and things like that, but I got into real estate by somebody else's design, right?
Right.
So I always look at it and say, okay, God has his plan. Do you want to make God laugh? Tell him what your plan is. He'll laugh.
And then he's going to tell you to sit down.
That's really cute. Now
Take
sit
a
down
seat.
and let me show how it's done.
All right.
And we all have it.
Yeah.
And I think that piece of it is probably one of the things that Robert and I have an understanding of, something that you have to be in this special club to be in to get it. And it's a club we don't want to be in. But when you're in it, it opens your eyes to seeing things that no one else sees. And that was probably the greatest thing that ever happened to me. And I know that sounds ridiculous. Through loss, you got the greatest gift. Well, the loss was the greatest gift. I got that, right? So my daughter, she was sick. She went to heaven when she was 11 years old. She got sick when she was 8, went to heaven at 11. And those 2.5, 3 years of her fighting this fight with cancer and such really is what taught me the greatest lessons in life. And am I the greatest father on the planet? No, I'm probably not. Probably 4 of my kids will say yeah, and one of them will probably tell you not so much. And at the end of the day, though, you do your best, right? And we can only be the best versions of us we can. And I'll tell you the same thing. Be the best version of you. And if you don't know what that is, and that's okay, because I say this to people all the time, are you the best version of yourself? And a lot of people, most people say no. And then I ask them why.
Right.
Why are you not? And they can't answer it. It's because they know the answer should be no, and yes, I am, because then they feel arrogant and cocky, or ego kicks in, I'm beating my chest. Well, if you really step back and look at it, what's preventing you from being that, right? So that's what you got to ask yourself.
Yeah.
What do I need to do to have that first, right? What do I need to do to have it? Then, how do I get it?
Right. And it's funny that you talk about this perseverance, because for me, I am a stage 3 breast cancer survivor. And one of the things that people used to always come up and say to me was, I'm so sorry you're going through it. And I'd be like, why? Because I'm not. Because if it wasn't for what I went through, I wouldn't be the person I am today.
100%.
And it was hell. I was 27 years old. It was awful. But in the big picture, I wouldn't be able to sit and tell the story, which you wouldn't be able to tell your story,
100%.
and it wouldn't have given you the opportunities that it did. So with that all being said, your miracle job came along, and how do you look back and reflect on that part of your life that was turmoil? I mean, we could say it was awful, to where you are now. Like, how do you reflect on those moments?
I think, I was I was that guy that said never. Get that word right out of your head. Stop limiting yourself.
Yeah.
Never means you just painted yourself in a corner.
Right.
So I've learned, and I still make mistakes. So don't think I'm the perfect expert at this, because I'm not. I still make mistakes, but I realize immediately when I make these mistakes, I just made that mistake. And I can backtrack it quickly. It's like, you know what? I didn't mean it the way it just came out because I said it wrong. Let me say it this way. And you'll find that you'll get a lot more respect out of people when you're honest. And I was a salesman from way back, from when I was young. I was always selling something. And
Started out with cars, right? Is that what it was?
No, I never got in cars.
Oh, wait, wasn't there
Someone said he was going to be a car salesman.
Someone said you were going to be a car
Correct.
salesman. Okay, because I'm like, I knew there was a car salesman in there somewhere.
You guys, all right, you guys are going way back. Right?
We are.
When I
What
was in
else
high
did you
school,
sell then?
right? One of the worst moments of my life at a young age, probably the worst moment at a young age, was I was in high school, and you do the aptitude test that's going to tell you what you're going to be when you're like a junior, senior. And everybody's in there. Now, remember, I'm old, so I was doing this before computers. Now, we had a computer in the library. So everybody went there and you had to type in all this stuff. That was the MS-DOS, backslash,
I remember that.
Amber screens,
Oh,
right?
thank you.
Uh-oh, we got something coming in.
We do.
It's gonna be trouble.
Excuse me.
Oh my God, thank you. All right. So what happened was when I did mine, and everybody did theirs, then they print out and the printer goes, and this big giant roll thing rolls up, and then you got to tear it off, and that was how that was. Well, you get your sheet, and it tells you what you're going to be right at the top, and everybody's looking at each other's. What are you going to be? What are you going to be? What's yours? What's yours say? What's yours say? And their friends are engineers, and some couple of them said doctors and lawyers, and firemen or policemen, and all these great jobs, and then a lot of trades and plumbers and electricians and things. And everybody's like, oh, I'm going to be a nurse. I'm going to be a doctor. I'm going to be this. I'm going to be that. And I'm looking at mine, and I am like just in shock. And I folded my paper over so nobody could see it, and everybody's grabbing it. My buddy grabs my sheet, and he looks at it, and he about falls over in the library laughing his butt off at me. And everybody's, what's he going to be? What's he going to be? What's he going to be? And it said I was going to be a car salesman.
And when was this again?
What age was this?
It's like 1982, 83.
Well, how old were you though? I mean,
I was a senior in high school.
and so you were a senior in high school.
I was
Okay.
17, yeah.
So what did you go on to be then?
Well, the funny part was it said I was going to be a salesman. It didn't
Yeah.
actually say car salesman.
Okay.
It said salesman.
Oh, okay.
But everybody said you're going to be a low-life loser used car salesman, because salesman was connotative with you're going to be a loser, you're going to be a used car salesman, you're
Right.
going to be slimy. You're going to be like, do we need to take that call? It sounds important. I
Not
remember
at
to
all.
turn my
I
ringer
just thought
on.
I turned
My
it
wife
off.
would be mad at me if I didn't turn off my ringer. She'd be like, you left
I
your
could
phone
have
on.
sworn I turned
Just
it
so,
off.
well, I had to say it so my wife knows that wasn't me. That was not my phone. So when it said a salesman, and then everybody's, you're going to be a used car salesman, snake oil salesman, which is way back in the day. Snake oil salesmen were what car salesmen were, compared
Snake
to.
oils?
Yeah, snake
Sale-
oils. Back in the Western days, they would come up in the carriage.
Oh.
They'd have this. This potion fixes
Oh,
everything.
okay. I've never
The
heard
blind
that
can
before.
see, the deaf can hear. Just drink some of this potion; it'll fix anything you got. And
Okay.
they would sell this crap to, ride into town, take everybody's money, and ride out of town.
Right.
It's just a bunch of crap, right?
So where are you from? Are you from here?
yeah,
Okay.
Metro Detroit. So I was born in Highland Park when I was a
Okay.
kid, and I lived my.
What was that like as a kid growing up in Highland Park?
I was 2 when my parents moved, so I don't know.
Let's talk about Curt though. When you were a kid, what was
My
that?
dad was a biker.
Okay.
So he started the Zulus Motorcycle Club in 1964, a year before I was born.
Oh, wow.
And he's one of the founding 6 members of the club. You had to have 6 members to be a chapter, and that's how it worked back then. So he started the Zulus Motorcycle Club in Detroit. They're still thriving today.
Okay.
So they're over on right at the Joy and where are they at? They're on Joy and like Greenfield, right there.
Okay.
Yeah.
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 So that's where their clubhouse is, and he's there every Wednesday and every Friday night. They do their club.
They still do their club
Yeah,
thing.
Wow.
yeah. He's a lifetime member. He's one of the original founding members of the club. So he was in it, and he was in it hardcore.
He was in it.
What
And
was
if you-
that like as you
that was
with you
interesting
as a kid, with him being.
I always thought it was neat, right? So
Okay.
I was always thought motorcycles were cool because from the time I remember anything, I'm riding on the back of my dad's Harley, right? So used to take our thumbs and he put our thumbs through his belt loops.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, really?
And
That's what he.
And he had a metal belt that was like a chain.
Okay.
Right. So it had all the things of a chain, so it wrapped around. Just bikers have the tough stuff. Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's what he had. So you'd put your thumbs through the belt loops and
Okay.
hold on to that.
And that's how you held on?
And you would grab onto the chain belt.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's how you held on. And he would ride, and you couldn't see anything. I'm only this big. Right?
Yeah.
So my face is on the back of my dad's back, and you're holding on. When you were really little, he would have me put you in front of him, and he would just drive around the surface streets and such.
Mm-hmm.
And then if he went riding,
Sorry, that was my phone. Don't worry about
Oh,
it.
wow, we got so
You
much
guys have
stuff
phone.
going
just
on
for the
today.
record, for anybody watching this,
What did you do?
ladies have phone issues, okay? Not the guy, okay? I'm outnumbered here. I get it.
Oh my god.
So that was kind of cool. Then my
Yeah.
dad would have the club members over, and there's so many photo albums and pictures of this stuff. And it was pretty cool because my dad would have, he was, an officer in the club forever.
Mm-hmm.
So at the height, the club had, 70, 80, 90, 100 members, whatever they had, just so many. And we moved to Royal Oak. So
Okay.
we live in Royal Oak on East Lawrence Street. So it's 13 in Maine.
Okay.
And all the bikers would come over to the house. Well, they would take up the whole street, and our front yard. And we had a long driveway because the garage was way in the back, and they would literally do it. And one of the guys in the club had a school bus that you turn, so he painted it black and with
That's
black and white
funny.
stripes on, almost
Do you
like a
actually have
zebra.
pictures? Do you have pictures of that?
Oh, there's a ton of
That'd
them.
be amazing.
My
to get
dad's
those
got a lot.
pictures.
You gotta
That'd
send
be-
those.
Yeah,
Yeah,
in
that'd be awesome.
1971, the guy that was the president of the club at the time, the guy's name was Dundee, and so this guy, he was, I know oddly, running from potentially police that were chasing him and for something. Of course, probably
May or may
going
not
through a
have
stop
been.
sign or something.
Yeah,
I'm
something.
sure it was something. very
Something
minor.
simple.
So anyway, and he ended up crashing and he died.
Oh no.
So they had this biker funeral, and I remember just a little bit because I was still young. I was born in '65, so I was like 6 years old, and maybe not even quite 6 yet. So you don't quite remember all that stuff that well. But all the pictures always keep it fresh, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So the newspaper, it was a big deal. So all the newspapers from New York, everything did a big deal because at the time, this was back, the Sons of Anarchy
Yep.
TV shows and stuff. It's really about what was going on back in those days. The biker wars in the 60s, 70s. This is when bikers were really at their peak and of what you know them as, right?
Yeah.
And my dad was knee deep in it, and their club was big time. So what was happening was at the funeral, all the clubs came and represented, and they all came to Detroit for this funeral.
Wow.
Really cool. So
Because I know like biker, like when there is a funeral, they show up.
they show up.
They show out, and it is like sometimes like police escorted.
because he was a president of the club at the time. So all the other clubs had to represent. So Hell's Angels from California, the Mongols,
wow.
and they hated each other, and they were both there, and you have a truce when you're there. So I learned all this stuff growing up of how this biker rolled. And it's not, my dad is going to kill me for saying this, but it's not much different than kind of how the mob has their rules. I'm not saying they're the same, but they have their
there's a
rules.
level
they
of
have their
respect.
turf. They have,
Yeah.
I never realized it was like that with bikers.
very organized, because people think it's just a bunch of guys getting together acting crazy. Extremely organized. You have officers, you pay dues. There's
Isn't
money.
that even their vests? Like there's their
Oh, their
vests,
colors?
like their colors,
Oh, yeah.
and there's stuff like
you
on
can't
their
leave
vest.
your colors in them. You can't take. No, I couldn't give my or put this on.
Right, and there's
Oh, no,
certain
no, no,
stuff
no.
on your vest that
Yes.
pertains to just
Yes.
you, right? Like
Yes.
I've learned a lot about that just because we've had friends that were in bike clubs. So there's a huge level of respect that
But I
comes
think-
along with that.
So to your point, Tyra, because I grew up in that environment from when I was little, right? And then and over time, my dad's started going there less, and it was really because him and my mother, they got divorced. Shocker. Right. So when I was 8, and dad leaves mom for the new wife, and she was part of the club scene from the biker club, so that he ends up in that environment. So this is what happens, and now he's living with her. Well, then I have an older sister and a younger brother, and I was the middle of the 3 kids. Then I ended up within that year, I went and moved in with my dad, so I moved with them, and not at first, but that's what ended up happening. So I grew up that way, and then me and my mom never spoke to each other. So for 24 years.
There was a separation.
Yeah, well, my mom was woman scorned, she was heartbroken, and it was difficult. And as a kid, you're 8, you don't care, right? You know,
What's your dad? And that's your dad.
That's my mom, it's my dad.
Right.
I think the world of them, and then all of a sudden, mom's not being nice.
Now,
to
did
dad
your
and
siblings
leave.
go with?
No, they stayed.
They stayed with your mom,
Yeah.
and then
So
you
we grew
went
up
to
in
your
two different
dad.
houses.
So then, what is your relationship with your siblings then at that point? Because
well, at that point, my dad, my brother was 2. He didn't know any different.
Right.
Yeah.
And my sister is 3 years older than me, so she was 2.5, 3 years older than me, and so she was kind of team mom, and I was kind of team dad.
Oh.
That's kind of what happened, and. So because I was, big boys don't cry.
Yeah.
Dad's great. Dad's the man's man, right? So here I am, 8. Dad says I'm the man of the house now, and I'll tell you how it is.
Right.
So I'm sure it was difficult for my mother. So she saw a lot of my dad every time she's talking to me. So ultimately, I ended up going to live with my dad, and then for my mom, it needed to be like you're gone,
All
with
or
him.
nothing.
Yeah, and that's how it really separated out. So my dad was still picking up, my sister, my brother. On random weekends and such, and they were. It was not a happy divorce, right? So my mom did everything she could to keep that from being an easy thing, and my dad did everything he could to see his other kids, and it was not an easy thing, right? But then he's remarried and he's got another kid from his wife who had a child, so she had a son. So then my dad legally adopted him. So then he became my half brother, even though he's technically my step brother.
Wow, that's a lot.
And I grew up with him, and we're only 10 months apart.
Yeah.
So you guys were close.
Well,
were you close, or
we
was
weren't.
there a little turmoil there?
Yeah, it was. That's my mom. That's my dad.
Yeah.
It was kind of like that.
Right.
And it didn't make it great, but I didn't have the relationship with my real mother anymore. So my stepmother became my mom.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I started calling her mom after about a year.
Wow.
So when my real mother didn't show up at my birthday, Christmas, didn't talk to me anymore, you go through a weird spot, And my stepmother, even though her and I didn't get along great, but she was there.
She felt that,
So I give her respect for that, and that's how I grew up. So I didn't grow up with the easiest, and I'm not complaining about anything because I learned through all of it.
Yeah.
Right? So I always jokingly say, and my wife jokes with me, because I adore my wife and she's great. Now, remember, I've been married once before too, so I didn't do everything right either.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so I'm the furthest thing from the model citizen. I've done a lot of crazy things that are wrong, but the thing is I've learned through everything I've done, and because
but everything's a life lesson, though.
It is.
I mean, you can't ever say that it's not.
So I don't regret any of it because I learned from all of it, especially the stuff that I did wrong.
Right.
One of the things, when you're in real estate, and I know this is real estate calling, you got me going down a whole other path. But you said this is the real stuff, so this
We
is
don't talk about real estate. We talk about everything else, but
everything except for real estate. So the truth is, though, right, when you grow up in these different environments, then you own what is yours. Oh, like we get a real estate license. It's all on ethics, right? Equal housing and all these things. Well, ethics means you know right from wrong. We all know right from wrong. I don't care. At 7 years old, you know right from wrong.
Right.
The problem is we justify, right? It's that our heart decides, our mind justifies. Well, I was really good at playing that, so I could make it okay for if I was doing stuff that was wrong. And I did some really wrong shit. So, but I made it okay. And
You want to talk about that?
No. You were going
You tried,
Oprah
you
on me.
tried.
I feel like I'm on Oprah.
I mean, you can't. You got to give her A+ for
You're
effort
gonna
on
have to
that
give
one.
out free car. You're gonna get a car, and you're gonna get a car. You're gonna do that.
She tried on that one.
Yeah, so she
You
did
gotta
too.
tell us
Whoever made
one
these-
story.
Drinks made them a little strong.
Oh,
Will
oh,
or
are we-
Rob?
wait, what are we-
Actually, mine is really good.
Rob, are
Well,
you
typically,
in?
Will did that.
yeah, typically we cheers too, so we didn't do that either. So
I didn't
we
have
didn't
any
have.
yet. I didn't have any yet.
I did take a sip, but
Circle gets the
yeah,
square. I
circle.
feel
okay.
about this.
All right,
Okay.
so cheers, and then we'll do our typical. We go around our head. This is what we do. You have to do that over here.
Is this a tequila dance? Is that how that works?
It's a.
Let's
I can
just call
smell
it that.
We'll just call it that. But Will made
All
the
right,
drink,
Curt.
so thank you, Will.
So yesterday, actually, I was talking to my mom about you. Yeah, about you. About your
no.
story. No, about your story about your daughter. Because it really touched me when you told me the story about her in the hospital. And also the story about climbing up the mountain and talking, was it an Indian or a shaman? So if you would like, could you share those stories with us? I feel like they're very touching.
It's so funny because I've
right.
told this story to so many people too.
Yes.
Like,
All right.
it's a pretty impactful story.
Well,
Yeah.
They both are, but
all right. To not make this doom and gloom,
No.
and we'll keep a very positive spin on
Yeah.
it, right? Because again, in things that we got to learn in life, and I'll just start with this, and I'll go into that for you. But what the real deal is, if you focus on the things that you do wrong, you're going to keep doing more things wrong.
right.
if you focus on the things that you need to do right, you'll do more right.
Yeah.
Right? And I've learned because I focused on the wrong stuff and I kept doing more of it wrong. Because think about how many people are in jail, right? And they do criminal things, they stole or they conspired or they did crazy things. And I'm not talking people that are hurting people. I'm just talking about people that did crimes that you didn't need
Made
to
that
do.
one mistake.
And they became so smart at how to do it, right? One of my favorite shows that I watch on TV, I don't have a specific show, but movies, and I'll watch a movie, but I like movies that are suspenseful. The people are really smart, and they did really bad stuff, and then they got to catch them, and the good guys, bad guys. And I really like those, because sometimes you cheer for the bad guy, right? And I find myself doing that. I'm like, am I a bad person? I'm cheering for the bad guy, right? But I think we all do that to some extent. I got people looking at me like, who is this guy? He's terrible, cheering for the bad guy. Well, it's sometimes you do, right? Because you kind of connect to them. And I think the movies that do that make you connect. Well, the thing that I'm getting at is, think about how much time and effort they spend into learning how to do something wrong and how to cheat the system or how to be an art thief and steal all this. But what if they took that same energy and time, because they're clearly very smart, and you put it to something good?
Yeah.
How amazing would you be? How would you invent the next app, the next cloud-based company, the next thing that's going to just
Facebook
change, literally change the world? Think about real estate, and I'm not talking real estate, but in the last 5 years, I joined a cloud-based real estate company. I didn't even know what cloud-based meant, right? Well, what in the hell was I doing? I didn't even know what it meant, and look how it changed my life, because cloud-based is changing the lives of everything.
Absolutely.
Every cloud-based company out there, from Uber, right? Started the same year that our real estate company did, 2009. Hint, hint, wink, wink, just saying. Right? Venmo, right? We all Venmo now. Well, guess when they started? 2009.
Oh, really? I didn't know that either. That's kind of cool.
Fun
facts. We can have fun facts.
Yeah. How about WhatsApp?
Yeah.
Oh, that? Don't even tell me that was Are you serious?
I watched the story of WhatsApp. How they came about. It's an amazing story.
It's a
if you guys want to check that out one day.
I watched one of them.
Necessity is the
They
mother
were
of
really
all
good
invention.
people until they sold it.
Until they sold it.
But
then they were greedy.
Now you're going to make me go watch it, because now I'm intrigued. I want to go watch the story.
You should watch it on all these companies.
Yeah.
Because the fascination should be in, why does cloud-based work so effectively?
Right.
Why is our society good with it? Because remember, it doesn't work unless the client or the person paying for it wants it. That's how things change, right? Well, we're a fast food society. We like things now. We like them instant.
Instant gratification.
Right? Where is everything going? It's all technology driven. What are we doing right now? I mean, think about this. Robert, I'm going to pull you on this, my friend. You don't get to hide. Here's the deal, right? You started a company to put things out there to people instant right now and in the best way you possibly could. Fair?
Yes.
Okay. With that said, you watched the Jetsons when you were a little kid on the cartoon.
Isn't that crazy?
And what did we see on the Jetsons? Next to
Zoom
the door
calls.
was a Zoom call. They had a
Everything
TV
happened in the
screen,
80s. It's
which was the
happening now.
phone.
Yep.
They hit a button and it called the person and you could see them. And we all said,
FaceTime.
FaceTime,
man,
yeah.
Exactly. It's
There's
FaceTime
so
on your
many
phone.
of the stuff
And we all
Jetsons that
said,
I look
right?
back.
What if we could really do that one day? Wouldn't that be crazy? We do that every day and think nothing about it. And we're like, why isn't it better? Why isn't it more 3D, three-dimensional? Where I feel like
now we're into AI world, and
right now we have robots talking to us for us, as us.
Yeah.
That's crazy stuff, right? And I get these
telling
things.
us about ourselves.
Yeah, and I start replying, and then my assistant, she's like, "What are you doing? That's not even a person." I'm like, "That's not."
Yeah.
Are you sure?
Sorry.
I'm gonna.
Boy, do I feel stupid, right? So I constantly get reminded how stupid I am all the time.
Well, yeah, so did you guys know that, and I may have said this before, but everything that happened or that they showed in the 80s, it prepared us for today. They prepared our minds for today in the 80s.
I can
so
fully
stuff
believe
like
that.
The Jetsons and things like that, it was already preparing our minds to be able to accept things that we accept today.
I would
like
absolutely
Zoom
believe that.
calls and FaceTime and all that. So they were already
We don't
way
have flying
ahead.
cars yet. Do we have flying? We don't have flying cars yet, do we?
No.
For some
The
reason, I think
future
that's
is not going to be that
intentional.
far away.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think it's going to be that far away, but I think
We're
that
still
is
doing
one thing about the
electric cars, so it'll
Jetsons.
probably be a
Electric
little
cars,
bit.
so it's getting there.
I don't think we're gonna
Yeah.
need flying cars. I mean, there's
I mean, did we ever think we were going to need the stuff
I
that
feel
we
like
have?
we could, but it's got to be
I mean,
a reason that they don't.
There are
that we don't.
airplanes, so I wouldn't hold it
I
past
worked
people.
selling appliances 100 years ago, and when the cell phones came out, and it was new, so it was a cellular phone, and they had the cellular bag phones, and then you could put these in your car, and literally, it was still corded, which is kind of funny.
I
right?
was just gonna
The
say
handset
that.
was still corded
My
to the
aunt had the
bag.
corded phone in her Cadillac.
Yeah, I
and she
remember
would pick it up and there was
And
like
if
a
you
cord.
watch like old James Bond movies or things like that, you'll see these people with those phones, and it's kind of funny when I watch a movie. I'm like,
They're
oh my
big
God.
boxes.
Look
Too.
what that
They're
was.
like huge boxes.
Big,
like,
big, yeah,
big box.
Big, right? So Maxwell Smart, if you ever remember who that was, right? He had a shoe that had a phone. And he could take out a shoe off and he could talk on it and use it as a phone. And it was this big clunky thing. But they were way ahead of the game because that was coming. Well, at the end of the time, I know we're running out of time here already, but when you go through these things and you look at the technology and stuff, I was the guy that said, these cell phones are stupid. These will never work. No one will ever buy these. And you could pay. You had to pay like $3 to $4.
Which blows my mind because you were like the salesperson. So like you would think that you would be like, let's do this.
Small-minded. I promise. I am not small-minded anymore.
Yeah.
Right? I'm way open to so many things. And again, when you start opening your mind up, it really was the thing that changed my life with that stuff was getting in the right room with the right people.
Right.
Right? And this room is a room full of right people. I can tell anybody watching this, get in a room with these people. These are amazing people because they're true servant givers, right? They're coming from the right place. And this goes to the story, and I appreciate where you're going. You're like, you're avoiding the story.
Yeah.
But it goes back to your, and I don't mean to interrupt you, but you taking, because I know both stories because we've all talked about them and we've had really great conversations. But I think you can take those stories and pull that positive out of them because it left all of us in these like aha wow moments. And I think we all walked away from that story.
And it was inspiring.
So I don't think I don't look at that story, even though my heart breaks for what you and your family went through. I don't look at that story in that way because that story impacted all of this entire room when we heard it in that moment of like, wow. Like it was a wow moment for all of us.
They are, and I think your life is full of them, and it's up to you to notice it, right? You have to see it, right? And like, it's a couple small combos I've had with Robert and stuff, and a lot of it too is, I read all of Robert's stuff, and because it's easier to read it than to talk to him about it, because then I get emotional, right? Because I feel what he's feeling when he says these things. But I love reading them because it makes me feel.
Right.
And I think when we're at our biggest pain is when we're the most alive. And when you go through whatever your tragedy is, right? And mine, clearly without a doubt, and the worst thing for me is my daughter got sick and she had cancer and she goes to heaven. But the best thing that happened to me, my daughter got sick and went to heaven, right? Where do you want them to be?
Right.
Where do you want to be?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the stories of her being in the hospital gives you that that full
it does
feeling of she's there.
Yeah, and think about the mindset, and and I say this all the time, and I don't want to get all spiritual for people that aren't feeling that, but I'll tell you straight out, it wasn't my decisions that made any of this. It was something way bigger than me, but it gave me the strength to think certain things and think certain ways, which were extremely beneficial and helpful during that time.
Right.
And, from the car ride, we go from the doctor saying, all right, she's got cancer. She's got this cancer called medulloblastoma. And at the time I'm trying to write it down. He's like, Curt, don't write anything down. I have this folder for you. You're going to take it with you. And I'm sitting there with her mother and I'm sitting there, with my daughter. We're all in the same room. Right. And he's telling us all at the same time. We were all just like, wow. Right, this is a whole lot to take in, and I was prepared for the news because I told myself we're going to get some really bad news on the way to the doctor's office. And then when we got there and we got the bad news, I watched how difficult it was for the doctor to tell us. And then I looked at my daughter who's sitting on the the little bed thing, and she's sitting literally next to me, and I have my arm around her, and I'm just looking at her, and I'm looking at him, and I'm looking at her, and she's just like, cool, great, having no idea what some of this stuff even means, but my real mother at the time had cancer and she was dying. She had lung cancer and she was close to her end. And Stephanie knew that. So when we get the news that Stephanie's got cancer, she related it to cancer's cancer. Well, grandma's going to die. Oh. So in the car, she says, oh, am I going to die? That becomes real fast. And you're just like, holy smokes.
You just ran into a brick wall.
How do I freaking answer that?
Right.
Other than
at 8 years old.
No, absolutely not. Right. That's not even we're not going there. And that transpired into me and her having a quick conversation because what had happened was I get out of the doctor's office. Now I got to rush her straight to Children's downtown here in Detroit, and we're coming down to Children's, and on the way here, as soon as I get out of the doctor, I got to call my wife and go, okay, here's what just happened, and here's the news, and it's the worst we were hoping for. So that's what it is. Mm-hmm. So I tell my wife, and I'm like, I'm heading down to Children's. Now my wife's in Canada, right? My wife's Canadian, so at the time we had a house in Canada, and so my wife's in Canada. She's over with her parents. She's with her mother. And so I'm telling her, so then she tells her mother, and they immediately get in the car and they drive across to meet me down at Children's. So they're on their way, and I tell my wife everything the doctor just told me. So it's like 5 minutes of telling her everything. So I hang out with her, and I'm thinking, okay, I need a little support here. This is going to be really tough. Okay, what do I need? Well, I need my dad, because my dad's going to he's my rock, he's my guy. My dad's going to tell me it's going to be all better, and no matter how old you get, right, your mama and your daddy are going to tell you it's going to be all right? And that's going to be all right. So I'm looking for my dad for this, some kind of support of like, okay, he's going to make this all better somehow, because I don't know what I'm doing. I'm so over my head. So I call my dad, and he's at work, and I'm like, hey, what's up? What's happening? I'm like, listen, he worked right down here for the county, so he worked for Wayne County, so he was working downtown, and he worked at the jail, so we used to always say my dad's in jail every day, he was working there. He was a trade, so he's a refrigeration engineer guy. So I call him up, and I say, hey, Dad, I just got the news with the doctor. Oh, yeah, what's going on? And I tell him, he's like, oh, my God, what do you want me to do? I said, I want you to get your ass over to Children's Hospital and meet me there. He's like, I'll be there. So he was actually there when I pulled up. So he was 5 minutes away when I called him. So he was there. And I hung up the phone, and that's when I looked at Stephanie, and she's literally just looking at me, and I was like, oh, my God, I just had 2 conversations about the worst possible things I could say with her just sitting here listening to me. And I felt like the biggest jerk on the planet. I am so stupid. How did I not think of this, right? So I'm literally internally going through this checklist of just kicking the shit out of myself, going, you're a dumbass. And I'm looking at her, and she's just like kind of like looking at me and just kind of half smiling. I'm like, did you understand any of that stuff, honey? Yeah. And I know you know this, and do you understand all that? And she's like, not a word, Dad, not a word. And I'm like, oh, thank God. And then she says, but, I said, okay, you have cancer, and that's a nasty word, right? She goes, yeah, like Grandma Cece. And my mother's name was Nancy, and so she's called her, the kids, they didn't know how to say it, so they say Cece. So she was Grandma Cece. So I said, yeah, so it's Grandma Cece's got cancer too. And she's like, and she's going to die. So am I going to die? And I was just like, oh my God, just knocked the wind right out of you. And you're just like, absolutely not. No, you're not going to die. That's not it. Are you kidding me? No. And that's what I say. Then the gift you get is I need help.
Right. Yeah.
So it instantly was there.
But I think her also, and that's one thing I do want you to talk about is her personality and what's the word I'm looking for? Her, is it comforting feeling, or like the way that she's like, Dad, stop. You say, she'd be like, Dad, stop, looking at me. Even that. Yeah,
here, I'll give you some things that maybe in a short amount of time that can help in some of these stories, and I'll just abbreviate them. But, what had happened was when she said that, I said, all right, well, what you have is you have a different kind of cancer. Grandma's got it in her lungs, and her lungs go away, and you can't live, so she's gonna go to heaven. You're not. You're going to hang out with me for a while, and kind of made her kind of laugh. And I said, you got a little bug right back here. And I touched her in the back of her head. I said, it's your cerebellum. It's the back part of your brain. And this is where this little bug is. And it's a really bug. You've been vomiting. And she's like, yeah. I said, that's really bad. She's like, yeah. And I said, all right, this bug is making that happen. And then you get these headaches, and they're really bad. She's like, yeah, these migraine. I said, yeah, that bug is doing that. I said, this guy is called a surgeon. He's got a magic knife. So I'm trying how do I explain this to an 8-year-old, right? That she can understand. I said, he's got a magic knife, and he's going to touch you right here with this magic knife. And she literally was like it was literally, and it literally made me think of telling her bedtime stories. And Stephanie and Savannah and I would tell bedtime stories. Sydney was even younger, so eventually I did to her as well. But, I would tell them bedtime stories, and Stephanie loved the princess stories. So she was always my princess, right? So I was thinking literally as I was saying this to her, and I was envisioning a bedtime story. This is what I was envisioning as I was saying this to her. And I said, he's going to have a magic knife. He's going to touch you, and it's just going to magically open up in the back here. And he's going to go in there, and he's going to take these giant tweezers. He's going to take this bug out, and he's going to throw it in the garbage. And then no more headaches, no more throwing up. And she's like, oh, good. I was like, yeah, that'd be good. And so and I was like, okay. Whew.
Right.
Dodge that bullet. This is good. She's getting this because this is going to be what she hears. And how do I say it to her so she doesn't get scared?
Right.
And then I said, "Are you okay?" And she said, "Mm-hmm." I said, "Are you scared?" And that's when she looked at me and she goes, "She's way too clever, right? Way too smart." And she looked at me and she goes, "Are you scared?" I'm like, "I'm petrified." Right? I'm like, "Of course not. Do I look scared?" And she's like, "Mm-mm." And I said, "So I'm not scared, honey. I promise. I'm not scared." And she goes, "You promise?" I said, "I promise." She goes, "You pinky promise?" Because that meant
She's throwing the
everything.
pinky promise out at
And
you.
I'm like, holy smokes. And I said, "Oh, yeah." So I pinky promised her. I said, "Okay, here's the deal." And I knew she needed something to make her comforted. And all I wanted to do was give her something to be comforted. So then I said to her, I said, "Okay." I said, "Pinky promise." I said, "When we get there, your mom's going to be there. Sherry mom's going to be there. Your Nana's going to be there. Papa's going to be there. Aunt Ree's going to be everyone's going to be there. And they're all going to bawl their eyes out the second they see you. They're all going to cry." And she laughed with me. I said, "Right?" And she's like, "Oh, yeah, drama queens." I said, "Exactly." And I said, "You got it." I said, "So here's the deal. You look at me. And if I ain't scared, you ain't scared. Deal?" And we're still pinky promising this whole time. And she's like, "Deal, pinky promise." I said, "You got it. You look at me. I ain't scared, you ain't scared." And she's like, "Okay."
How'd that work out for you, though?
Worked out awesome.
Okay, good. Because I would have walked in and seen everybody and been like, oh.
Okay, so here's, again, as I said, this was so much more of a higher power carrying my ass through this stuff.
Yeah.
And you need that, right? And I believe that I was open to that, and that's why that happened. If I wasn't open to it, I don't believe it would have happened. Because I certainly needed help. I didn't know what to do. Right? And all I knew was I got to keep her feeling that this is going to be okay. No matter what happens here, it's going to be okay. Now, what we just found out was this is going to be really bad. I'm like, for her, it's got to be okay. And I don't know how I'm going to make this okay. And as a parent and anybody listening to this stuff, anybody who's gone through these things, you understand that you see it as an adult. So you deal with it and process it as an adult. But kids see it as a kid. And I think the problem, if I want to critique myself as something I might have missed a little bit on, wasn't with her. I had that locked in, and I thought I had that pretty good because I kept her always looking at me, and I never cried in front of her once, not one single time. I cried constantly, just never in front of her, never where she could hear me. And it's difficult. So when you see people, this is where you react to the people that you care and respect and love, and they're looking at you and they're falling apart. And you're like, "Don't do that. I can't breathe. I can't swallow." And you're just smiling like, "Yeah, it's gonna be okay." So what we did was, as soon as we went to the hospital and the waiting room, all this stuff, then we ended up in a room right away. And when we ended up in this room, they have the 2 beds, but it was a private room, so there's only going to be her in it. So she's in the second bed closer to the window, further from the door. There's no other bed. They took that bed out, so there was nothing there but where a bed goes. Well, they had a curtain, that pulls between the 2 beds. And when I sat in the chair, and she's right here, people are coming in the door, and I looked, and I'm like, okay, I think I got an idea. So I pulled the curtain about 3/4 of the way down her bed, so she can't see the door and she can't see them, and they could walk really close to the bed before she can see them. So I could see them, she can't, because
so you're on the opposite side.
Yeah. So
okay.
I was on the far side, the window behind me, sitting on the window seat actually. And I thought, okay, if I'm here, as people come in, I can pick them off, and the ones that are coming in losing it, I can go around the bed and catch them behind the curtain. That way I'll hug them. And that way, if I get emotional, which happened a lot, I can get emotional here as long as you don't hear me. All right? So I'll make sure I keep that side. She won't know that I'm having a tough time, too, with them. And I could hug them and everything. And if it was the people coming in, I immediately grabbed them, hugged them, and walked them right back out the door. And then what I did the second day was I realized there's going to be a ton of this. So we literally, I took a piece of paper, and I wrote on it, "In this room, we live." And I stuck it on the door with tape, and the nurse goes, "That's perfect."
It's so crazy for you to even, I don't want to say process or think all of that in that such short time period of getting from point A to point B into the room and be able to process all of that and put that all together.
Like I said, I think somebody way smarter than me was able to channel it through me. And what it was somehow I was able to really hyper focus on it. And then subsequently, for all these years later, I'm able to hyper focus on what I need to do, and I'm able to accomplish a lot of things that I probably never could have done before.
Right.
And I really believe that. I don't think I ever would have been that great at anything. I was always pretty good at a lot of things, wasn't great at anything. And now I think I'm really great at some things, and it's really fun because then I can impact people's lives. And
Do you think that has to do with Stephanie
100%. Yeah,
and everything you went through?
Well, I think it's the whole package, right?
Yeah.
So it's a Stephanie thing, and I think it's an angelic thing. I think it's a God thing. I think it's a spiritual thing. I think it's the whole package. And once I was open to it, it was open to me, and I could see it. And I could see it all develop. And there are people who can't. And there's nothing wrong with that. And I don't blame anybody. And that's where we started counseling families that have kids with cancer. And that's probably the greatest thing I've ever done.
Yeah.
And people are like, well, you made money in real estate, you helped all these other agents. I impact a lot of people. I started a coaching it's called impact coaching, right? So we can impact people's lives in a positive way and get the negatives out.
Yeah.
Because if you can impact them so positively, you can change their mindsets. And that's the hardest thing for anybody. I can't make you do anything.
Right.
But if I can get you to start seeing things
Differently.
Yeah.
that's all, it's just different. If I can get you to see it different, you'll digest it, you'll see it, and it becomes crystal clear for you.
And that's what I was going to ask you. Like with Stephanie going to heaven at such a young age, at what point did you move forward to where you are now to start having that
Took a year.
mind shift?
Yeah, like the first year is the hardest year,
Yeah.
right? And I think anybody who's gone through it knows that first year is a son of a bitch. Their birthday, you're just cracked.
Right.
And as much as you talk yourself through it and I'm okay. No, you're not. You're a bucket of mush. And it doesn't take but this to trigger that. And then you go through that. So anyhow, so when you start going through these things, that first year, the first everything, first birthday, first Christmas, first Easter, first holiday, first everything, you go through it. And the first anniversary of their passing and they're gone, right? So what we found was, my total belief is that she's in heaven, and there's a whole lot of stories, and I know we're running out of time to tell some of these really great stories, which are really neat. Her talking to angels and actually having this connection, and that's maybe for another day. We can talk about just some really cool, neat things. But to see that and to be part of that and to understand that is mind-blowing stuff. Well, it's heartwarming, and it makes you feel so good.
Right.
And it gives you this sense of it's okay. And that helps you move on. So moving on, it's not an easy thing, because I'll share this really quick. The thing that I feared more than anything when she was going to heaven was, will I one day wake up and not remember? And that sounds ridiculous, and it is.
Well, she's made that quite known that that's not going to happen.
It ain't never going to happen, right? And I think every single day, and there's so many cool things. And in my basement, you walk down my stairs, I have this huge picture of her on the wall, right? And that's the biggest picture of her in my house, right? And it's when you come right down my stairs, it's the first thing I see. And people are like, oh, that was so nice you put there so we can all see it. I didn't put that for nobody. That was never me.
For you.
I didn't get anything with nobody.
Right.
I mean, that's the truth of it. I, of course, write, oh, absolutely, and thank you. That's how I was thinking. That was not what I was thinking. That's totally for me.
That's totally for you. Absolutely.
And it's this beautiful picture, and we've used it at our charity things that we've had, and all these different pictures. And what they are is a friend of mine, Mike Converse, a wonderful man. He owns a printing company, and he put these together, and they're on metal. So they're painted on metal. So it's
they're
a portrait
painted?
on metal.
Like it's a paint?
Yeah,
like
it's
a
a
painting?
portrait. Somehow the picture is imprinted on metal. So instead of a canvas, it's on a metal.
That's amazing.
And it's insane. And these things will last forever. They're freaking awesome. So then I have them attached to the wall, so it's up there. And it's amazing, right? Because they keep all their color. They don't fade. They don't do anything. And I'm like, I love these. So I love him for that forever.
Right.
But that's what I see every day. And I see this, and it makes me feel great. And I don't have to see it. More drinks, please. So anyhow,
Weird, it's all over the place
so
today.
with that, so Pinky promising her and doing these things, and then seeing her literally, transitioning to heaven. Before that, she's literally talking to angels in a room,
And that's definitely a story that I do.
And that's an amazing story.
And
it is. And my really fun little piece and my little snippet. I was sitting there working on a computer, and I was sitting across.
It's my favorite.
There's nobody in the room, and she's laying in the bed, and the TV's on, but the light started to hurt her eyes. And this was just a few days before she went to heaven. So we took a towel and we covered the TV screen with a towel so she could still hear it, and you could see color. You can't really see the screen. And she liked it. And she would look at it, and I'm like, You can't see anything. I've been looking at it, feeling like, you can hear the stuff. So some of it's like, you're like, oh, this is good. And you're staring at a towel on a screen.
A towel on a screen.
Just to listen, right? And so this is happening. And then, I was sitting there and I was, looking on the computer screen. And the computer screen's kind of up to here, and I'm kind of here. And all of a sudden I hear her saying something. And so I kind of like look up, and she's like laughing and her little shoulders would bounce, and smiling because she's happy with something. And I'm like, oh, it must be the TV, because she's looking straight at the end of the bed and the TV's over here. And it's kind of like, well, she's not exactly looking at the TV. She's kind of looking here. And I'm like, okay, no big deal. But she's laughing. And I'm like, okay. And then, so I kind of look up again and I'm like right here with my computer screen, my laptop. And I'm looking at her and she's having a full-blown conversation with somebody. And I'm like, there is nobody in this room but me. And I'm like, she ain't talking to me. And I'm looking at her and I'm like, what are you looking at? Who are you talking to? And then she would literally like, how you gesture and you're like, when you're, okay. She's doing this. And I'm just literally like, you are having
she's
a
8,
full-blown
right?
conversation.
No, she's 11 at this
She's
point.
11.
She's 11 at this point.
So she's 11 and she's having a straight up conversation and she's laughing and joking and then she's even gesturing with her hand. And I'm like, whoa, who are you talking to? Now, in fairness, I had seen this happen a few times. Her mother had seen this happen a few times. My wife had seen this happen a few times where she'd be at home and, having these little conversations. And you're like, who are you talking to? And every time you would ask her, she would just say, Daddy, you don't understand. You won't understand. Tell her about me. You won't understand. Tell her, share about me. You won't understand. And we all were like pressing her, like, and then no. And she would get angry.
Yeah.
You would not understand. And we're like, whoa, okay. And she's a really bright little girl. And part of what you were saying earlier, she knew what was happening and we never, ever spoke of it. Her mother never said it. Sherry never said it. I never said it. Nobody ever said, you're dying. You're going to heaven. I never did. But she knew.
Right.
And she was well aware. But no one had ever said this. And when we would talk, how you doing, how you this, how that. And she's sitting there having this full-blown conversation. And I'm here, so I'm now just like,
glued in.
Holy smokes. So now I'm not looking back down. I'm staying right here. And all of a sudden, she's like, what? And then she looks over. Whatever it was she was talking to, which we did find later that it was an angel of sorts of however that works. Well, she was literally talking to an angel who told her, we're done because, dumbass over here, your dad's listening in. And I'm ruining this clearly great conversation. I'm screwing it up by paying attention because I ain't supposed to be in this conversation.
Right.
And I'm looking and I'm like, and then she like looks at me and I look at her and then she kind of looked back and then she looks at me again and I'm like, I feel like, I'm in trouble. Like, I did something wrong.
Did you have a book or something and you're like...
No, it's a computer screen. So I kind of...
did you duck down? That would have been like...
Of course you do. Because you think you're like a little kid getting caught by your parents. She's a kid. I'm not supposed to be doing this. And I literally was like,
yeah.
How you doing, honey? And she's like, good. And I'm like, I gotta ask, who you talking to? You wouldn't understand. I'm like, okay, I can't do this. I can't understand things. That was like some serious shit going down, all right?
Yeah.
And you were having like a big deal. So I go over to her bed and I get up in the bed with her and I'm like, you okay? And she's like, what are you doing? She's like, just listen to the TV. I'm like, bullshit. Who are you talking to? I gotta know. I'm like, come on, honey, you gotta tell me. And I'm doing my best salesman stuff I can do to get her to tell me. And I'm like, come on, you gotta tell me. And she literally was like, Dad, you wouldn't understand. And she's getting angry again.
Yeah.
I'm like, God, I hate when she gets angry. And it's like, I don't want you to be angry. And I want you to be happy. And it's like, you gotta tell me. So I'm like, look, I mean, I begged her, like, just, I know I won't understand, but if you could just kind of, what if I just like ask questions and you can give me yes or no's? Can that help? And then she's like, like disgusted, but I'm like, I'm going to do it anyway. So I, is that, can you like see who you're talking to? She's like, Dad. And I'm like, honey, just humor me, right? Obviously it's a good person, not a bad person, right? Or a thing or an it or a something. She's like, yeah. I'm like, oh my God.
We're getting somewhere.
Thank you. She's giving me something because this is like my 15th time trying to do this and she shuts you down, right? Her mother shut her down, Sherry shut her down. And I'm like, okay. So it's a good thing. Yeah. Okay. So you can hear them because you were having a conversation, right? And she's like, I'm like, okay, good. Nods are good. That's a yes.
Getting somewhere.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just getting a little
Inches.
just
We're taking inches.
Like, come on, give it to me, girl. I gotta know. This is like so important. And I'm like, because this is gonna be like the most amazing thing on the planet. Like, if you're telling me that, like, and I'm like, how high are we talking to God? Are we talking to Jesus? We talking to angels? Where are we at? Give me. Where are we at? Because this is like a big deal, and I know that we're in the last few days of when we're going to be able to do this. And I'm just like, come on, baby, talk to me. And she gave up a little, not much, a little bit. And then she explained that ultimately, after me asking her a bunch of times, and I know we're out of time, so let me just speed it. And what she was able to convey was that, yes, this is an angelish kind of thing. And this is a special angel. And then she said it's the most loved. And I'm like, I don't know what that means, but okay, I'm going with it. And she said that it's that I can see them and hear them, but the other angels can't. I'm like, whoa.
Right.
What other angels? So then what she explained small was that, well, I can talk to these angels. They can hear me, but they can't see me. These ones can see me, and I can see them, but I don't see these ones, but I can hear them. So I talk to them, but they can't see me, and this one can, and I can see them. And I'm like, holy smokes, this is like crazy.
Coming from an 11-year-old too. Let's even like
11,
go back to that. She's 11.
The most amazing.
Explaining this all to you is
and
the most
coolest, greatest, most amazing thing. And it ultimately turned out. So a buddy of mine's brother, who's very into all this religions and how these things break out, and he's kind of an eclectic guy, and he really understands this stuff. So when I had talked with him, he's like, the most loved, yeah, that's what these are. And he explained this whole thing to me, and I was just like,
you had that
how
moment.
do you know this? Like, who are you? And where did this come from? And, like, you're a painter. Like, you don't know anything. Like, how can you know this stuff?
And was it exactly how she
explained it?
Yeah, and it was really, but it was much more in depth. So you could fill in kind of the blanks, if you will. And ultimately, what it came down to, which was like the most amazing thing, was, that she was literally talking to what we would call angels, and the most loved are essentially like archangels that from heaven, and that God and Jesus talk to, and that get the direction from God directly, and archangels that we know like Michael and all these archangels. Well, she never said, I don't know who or which, or Gabriel, Michael, I don't know. Well, whoever the angel, she could hear and see them and talk to them, and they would talk to her, and they would basically give instruction of some sort. And then they convey a message that gets conveyed down.
Right.
And then her job is that. And there's like a hierarchy of angels. And based on what she told me, these little snippets, and then when I told him, well, wait a minute, what is this? What is that? And he was explaining how it, supposedly in these books, it explains it, that it puts her kind of like on if archangels were the closest, they're the most loved with God, so they're the closest to God. And then if she can actually communicate to them, then she would be, if you were giving ranks or levels, she would be like the second level.
Almost like the messenger between the two.
Totally, 100% messenger.
Yeah, the messenger between the two.
He's literally a massive purpose to do.
Right.
And what that actually is, I don't know. But she has a huge purpose. And that makes total sense, when I get to look back and reflect, and you're like, oh my God, and even telling you now, you get a little emotional about it.
Yeah.
Because it's amazing that, like, you're like a big deal.
Right.
Right?
But you knew that before.
Yeah.
Just how she handled the entire process. You knew that.
Right? And it was a really amazing thing, and then you get to feel that. And I could actually feel that, and I know it sounds weird, but I could feel that, and that was the most amazing.
The feeling is everything too. It is. When you can feel it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I wanted so desperately, and what was great with my wife and my other ex-wife, they were awesome because we were all in the room, each night and until she got to go to heaven. And when she was laying there, we would switch off. So I would lay in the bed with her this night, and then tomorrow night her mom would, my ex-wife, she would lay in the bed with her, and then the next night I would lay in the bed with her, and my wife would lay on the opposite, whatever side I was on.
Right.
We would do this musical chairs thing, and it was awesome. And then for whatever reason, my ex-wife was awesome with that. She's just like, it was her night, and she's like, no, why don't you go ahead and lay with her, and she seems to be calm with you. And then she had gone into her little coma, and so we couldn't communicate to her anymore, but we knew.
But you knew.
I could feel she was there, and then I wanted to be, and that sounds silly to some people, but I wanted to be there at that moment where she transcends to heaven.
Yeah.
And this transition takes place. And I wanted selfishly, I wanted to experience whatever that is.
Yeah.
Well, that's not how it works, right? I was there.
God told you to sit down.
Told me to shut the hell up.
And sit
That's
down.
amazing.
I already gave you this. Now lay there and shut up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I'm literally staying up through the entire night. And I had done this a lot of times because through the whole process of her going through all these brains. She had 4 brain surgeries. She had 5 surgeries in all, 4 brain surgeries, and there was all this that goes with it. And you stay up all night because she was so proud. She didn't want to pee at a bedpan, and that was such a thing to her. And she had, she was so small and so thin by the time, when she was so sick. So it was easier to pick her up. She didn't weigh that much, and so she really wanted to use the bathroom in the bathroom. Well, when she would go through these different chemos, they would put these bags of fluids. Well, the fluids are filling her. She's got to pee every 20 minutes.
Absolutely.
And you got to pick her up.
Yeah.
Now, you got to remember, she got three trees of these meds going through her, right? And one of the nurses was so cool, and she taught me a trick to take the trees with all the bags on it, the IV bags, and you lift them up and you angle them, put them on top
of each other, so the wheels.
So you could drag 3 together.
Right.
And that was the coolest thing. That was like so helpful. Because you're trying to drag 3 and one's going, and you're like, no, it's like chopping carts. So like, no. And you're trying to pull them together, and you're holding her. Well, she's got a tube coming out of her head that's connected to these things. So you can't mess around. You can't go that far, and it was just like, holy smokes. So it was great. So I'm the night guy because I could stay up through the night. So Dad gets to be that guy. And so I'm carrying her to the bathroom constantly through the night so she could use the bathroom and feel good about it. So, but you do these things, right? And it was great. As much as it was like, I just got back in the bed and you got to go, okay, let's go again. And you do this, and it's like, you wish you could keep doing that, right? I wish I could do it now, and you can't because it all goes through its process. But those are the things that matter to her. And he was like, I'll do anything for that.
Yeah.
And she always had that gratitude. And, one of the coolest things ever, and the other stories that I've shared is, my greatest possession I own, is that we joke about it. My wife is, if the house burned down, if I don't get that out of the house, I'm going to end up burning and dying in that house because I'm going to get that out of this house. It's when she first had her very first brain surgery, half of her face never woke up, right? So we used to call her my girl with a broken smile.
Right.
And Maroon 5 made that song, She Will Be Loved. And if you listen to the lyrics of the song, you're the girl with the broken smile. Well, that was her. That was my baby, right? So my own princess. So I used to sing that to her, and that was kind of our little thing. And so today it's kind of my thing with her. Just anyway. So it's kind of a bad thing. Well, anyway, that's how she was. So when her right side, she was right-handed, didn't work when she came out. All her right side didn't work so good. So she didn't have the dexterity and such. So she would go
the entire right side, like not just her face. So, it was her.
Yeah, even her right eye never closed all the way, so she would just grab it and close it. She just did it like it was nothing. But yeah,
even that, like, oh my gosh, she was amazing.
This is what I'm saying. So you can see the sad, bad parts.
Yeah, but that's just amazing.
Yeah. Do you feel like she had already like halfway transitioned? At that
she
point?
was already kind of
mentally.
I think, and this might sound crazy to people. I think she was already in and out of heaven already because she had this angelic angel thing. And I used to say to her, "You're my angel. You got real wings, don't you?" And I would literally say it to her for real. And I'm like, "You got real wings, don't you?" And she'd go, "Look like it." But
I feel like growing up, I remember hearing like, it's angels in the room right now. It's angels all around us, but we just can't see. But she was at the point where she was actually able to hear.
Having conversation, full-blown conversation.
Yeah, you're spot on. Yeah. She could. And I'm like, you're obviously way better than me. You got this down pat. Teach me. But my prized possessions, when she went through physical therapy with that, it took her 6 weeks. And she finally, just after 6 weeks, she was finished making this bracelet. They made her do it with her right hand, and she couldn't do this, right? They make her pick up little beads, little girls with little beads and make up little jewelry. So she made this little bracelet.
They're all over my house.
Yeah, right. And anybody with little girls, you got this. So she made the beads, made the bracelet. And the bracelet she ended up making, it was green and silver and just in white, those little beads. So the green, silver, white, green. So they made her do a pattern. They made her lay it on a tray. And then she made this thing. Well, when she made it, the cool part was, right, she's got her mom, she's got Sherry mom, she's got her dad, she's got sisters, she's got brothers, grandparents, she's got everybody, and she has herself. And the true beauty of Stephanie, this was just her forever. It's just how she was. she makes this bracelet, and we don't know what she's doing. The nurses, the whole team come, and it's a production. They're like, these nurses are chests out, proud as could be. They're coming down, and they come in the room, and they're like, okay, we got something for you guys. Okay, moms, dads, sit your butts down, here we go. And we're like, okay, we got some good news today. All right, what'd you do in therapy today, you know? And Stephanie's just beaming, right? Again, only half her face works, right? This half doesn't lift, this half works great. And I could always see this gorgeous, beautiful smile, where a lot of people are like, oh, this poor thing, you know, she doesn't look happy. I'm like, nah, you're missing it.
Yeah.
Block this half, look at this half. She's beaming.
Yeah.
Right? And thank God that gave me the ability to see that. I always saw that.
Yeah.
And she comes in and she makes this little arts crafty little bracelet thing, and like she made something and she finally finished it. It took her, you know, they're like, it took 6 weeks to so many hours a day, this and goes to this whole thing. We're like, wow, well, what'd you make, honey? What do you got? And then they show us this little green and white and silver bracelet, and it's on a little rubbery, you know, stretchy little bands things. Makes us a bracelet, and then she's like, Stephanie, you know, what do you think? And she's like, yeah, and you could just see it was such a proud moment for her that she could do this.
Right.
And you were just like, wow, this is great, you know. And then she's like, well, here you go, this is for you, Dad.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think
So
that's the best way to like
So that was the
on a
most
great note. Yeah.
And you said, I mean, I'm sure you can. No, you carry a rack with you, isn't it the rack? You carry your rack
got
with
it
you.
with you
You
now.
got your rack, your gratitude stone with you.
It's always
We have to talk about that. Your gratitude stone. I didn't forget about that. Your gratitude stone.
So I know we got to wrap up this podcast,
Yes.
but I want to leave it with one last final question.
Okay.
And thank you so much for being vulnerable with us.
Yeah.
It
This was not where I thought we were going today. I thought we were going to say about, let me tell you, great of a real estate guy.
Does she give you signs that she's still with you today? And you don't have to go into stories. You can just say yes or no. But
when, you know, I always feel her presence, sometimes way more than others. I know her mother does. I know my wife does. And and to explain that, it would take some time, but just when she first was gone, when she first went to heaven, and I couldn't literally physically touch her anymore. One of my coolest stories, and I will not go through the whole thing, but there was a night that I had a dream-ish, and she was there, right? And I got to hold her and touch her and kiss her, and we had a conversation with that you're not here anymore. So it was the most real conversation you could have, and I know that for some people that sounds really weird. Or, oh, you had a nice dream. If that makes you feel good,
I
okay.
totally get that.
Yeah.
Like
It
those
was
dreams.
so real.
Yeah.
It was absolutely legit.
But I think the best part's after this.
Yeah. And what happened was it was around 5:30 in the morning, right before 6, and I had this incredible time with her, and it felt like in this dream state or whatever I was in, it felt like it was like about an hour, and it just was like a long time. It was so great, and I got to talk to her, I got to hold her, I got to hug her and kiss her. She looked great. She wasn't sick. She looked beautiful, and I remember just talking to her, holding her and hugging her, and she kept laughing at me hugging her so much. And I'm like, I gotta hug you again, and you know, I gotta kiss you some more. And I'm kissing her head, and you know, and she's laughing at me, and we're talking, and it was the most incredible moment or moments at the time. And I remember, next thing you know, I wake up, and she's gone, and I was literally like, oh no, where'd you go? No. You know, you're like, no, come back.
Right.
And then I was like, wait a minute, was I in a dream? Wait a minute, I'm awake, and I am wide awake, and I'm like, I'm not dreaming. No, I had to be dreaming. Okay, close your eyes. I'm talking myself through this stupidness, and I'm closing my eyes. And I'm like, okay, are you there? Are you gone? Maybe, you know, be in here. Come on, honey. And then I'm like, oh my God, and then I just burst into tears.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting in my bed, sitting up. My wife's asleep, and I'm sitting there just sobbing of happiness.
Right.
Happiness, but I'm just as full of emotions as I could be, and I'm really happy, but I'm bawling, and I'm like a little kid, you know, I'm bawling, and I'm happy. My wife wakes up because I'm just having a moment, and she's like, oh my God, what's the matter? Are you okay? And I'm like, you didn't see her, did you? She's like, oh my God, what? And I'm like, Stephanie was just here. She's like, oh, you got to be kidding me. And she totally got it.
Yeah.
And so I freaking love that my wife gets that. And she always did, because she felt her too. It was such a neat thing. And it was just Stephanie being Stephanie, And so we were like sitting there and I'm telling her all about it. And I probably go on for maybe 10, 15 minutes about this amazing, and this is like, you don't understand. And I was, I was talking, this is so great, all this stupidness, and I'm, crying, and I'm telling her, this is so great, and I'm telling her, and she's crying with me, and she's like, this is so great. And I'm hugging her, and she's telling me, and I'm like, oh my God. And all of a sudden, we hear like coming down the hall, like, oh shit. We woke up one of the kids. Well, Sydney is our youngest, and Sydney is daughter with me and my wife, and so she's youngest of the 5 kids, and she's the one that looks like Stephanie, and she comes tootling down the hallway, this little 5-year-old, 5 and 6 years old, and she comes down, and she comes in our room, and literally climbs up on our bed, boom, pops up, and right there, boom, plops down right between me and my wife, just face down, and she's like, oh, like for sheer exhaustion, and she plants her face down between us, and we're like, me and my wife are like looking at each other, and I'm like wiping my eyes. My wife's wiping her eyes so she can't see that we're bawling like dummies, right? And she's laying there, and my wife's wrote her, and she's like, "You okay, honey?" And she's like, "Mm-hmm." I'm like, what are you doing, honey? Why are you in here? And she's like, "Oh, Dad, Stephanie." Oh. And me and my wife look at each other, like, and I mean, you have a chill that just like freaks you out.
Yep.
Stephanie, what do you mean, Stephanie? She's like, yeah, Dad. And she's literally laying there she's just, not quite 6 years old. And she's just like, oh, Dad. Stephanie came and we just played all night.
Wow.
And I'm like, you what? And she's like, yeah, me and Stephanie were in my room. We were playing all night. And Savannah was asleep. And I just was playing with her. We were playing. And then I got really tired. And I said, Steph, I got to go to sleep. I'm really tired. So she said, okay. And I told her, just go down and go talk and go play with Daddy.
Wow.
Me and my wife looked at each other like we'd seen a ghost. Like, you gotta be kidding me. And this was the craziest, wildest, most amazing thing I'd ever heard in my life. And
it's like from one extreme to the other, like the most crazy, wild, but the most amazing experience to like put all together.
Yeah. I just asked her, what did you, what, honey? And she's like, yeah, I told Steph to go play with you. And she's like, I'm so tired. And she just like, I'm going to sleep. And we're like, me and my wife sat there.
That's my favorite part of the story.
Seemed like an hour.
Yeah.
Seemed like an hour. And we're staring at each other like, she did not just say that.
Right.
That did not just happen. That did not just happen. And that's the kind of stuff that happens. So
that happens.
To your thing, I feel connected to her. Me and my kids, we, they each have their own feeling towards it and what it means to them and how they, work with it. And they're all different. And I found that to be kind of interesting. Sydney's probably the most fortunate of all of them because she was so much younger that it was just, she has this angelic belief, Steffi's an angel. Yeah, Steph's got
That's
wings.
probably amazing for her.
In her, she totally sees it that way.
Yeah.
Since, she's 21. And she's still like, oh yeah, my sister's an angel. Oh, of course. Mm-hmm. And Savannah dealt with it different. Jamie dealt with it different. Matt dealt with it different. Mm-hmm. And as adults, as the parents, you deal with it different. Even me and her mother, we dealt with it differently, and not that anyone's right or wrong.
There's no handbook.
No, and it's how you do it. So, like at our gravesite, I feel a responsibility, and we all go there, and everybody goes separately. Mm-hmm. We never go like, okay, let's get the family and go do this stuff. And there's a lot of families that do, and I don't think there's anything wrong with it. Mm-hmm. We go individually and do our thing. And my thing is, and I just feel it's my responsibility to keep this little area looking right the best I can anyway. I'm not perfect at it, but the best I can. Because that represents who she meant to everybody else. And this isn't her, this is for everyone else, right? She's in heaven. So when I go there, and me and Sydney will sometimes go together a lot, my youngest daughter, and her and I will go, and we clean it up and we make it look as pretty as we can. We get go granite with her picture on it, and her angelic picture is from her first communion picture, and it's a really cool picture. And we clean it up, make it look all nice, and we just talk to her. I look up when I talk to her. I don't look down. I don't talk to her this way. I talk to her this way, and I just because that's where I feel her.
Yeah.
So that's how I feel.
And I think that's really like impactful, and that's something that we've taken away from all of this. And I know you said you wanted to end on that question, but I do have one more because we're going to end on a positive note. And everything that you've talked about has been positive, and I think it's been impactful for all of us. We've talked about the stories that we had with you weeks ago about Stephanie, but Usually Tyra asks this question. Do you want to ask the question, or do you want me to?
Go ahead.
Come on,
What
Tyra.
is?
Are you scared?
She does. She usually ends on this question,
Don't be
so I
scared.
didn't know if I was gonna.
Go ahead.
What is one thing that people don't know about Curt Shewell? What would be the one thing that nobody knows that you could end on that note?
You didn't tell me this one.
I didn't know we were ending on this question.
Well, that's usually Tyra
we
ends on
do.
that one.
Yeah.
So we're gonna end it on that because I love every conversation about Stephanie, and I could talk about her for hours.
Yeah, I could do this one easy.
Yeah, but what is one thing that people don't know about Curt?
You didn't tell me that either.
How about we give you a choice? You can answer that, or what would you tell your younger self?
Oh, that's a good one too.
Okay, that's way.
Oh wait, that's way easier. You gave me the easy way out, Tyra. Okay,
because we might have been sitting here waiting for a while for you to figure it out.
All right, here I'll give you both. How about
Okay,
that? I'll tell you.
deal.
All right, I'll give you the first one because it's more tough, and I'll give you the easy one after.
Okay.
So what does nobody know about myself? I don't think I deserve to go to heaven, and I hope one day I get there. Because
Wait, say that again?
That's really powerful.
Because if I don't get to see stuff.
Okay.
And I believe that.
What was say the beginning again? I missed that.
I don't know that I deserve to go to heaven.
That'll be a part 2 conversation.
Yeah, that's a really powerful statement there, Curt. That's incredibly powerful.
That's my biggest fear.
Okay.
I should have asked that in the
So if
beginning
you want to know what I'm afraid of, I ain't afraid of anything. I'm afraid of that.
of that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I believe you will go to heaven.
I hope so.
You will.
Oh my gosh, I wasn't gonna cry. Now we're gonna go there. Okay.
No, that's my biggest fear. So
You should end it on that.
nobody knows. What I tell my younger self, I'll give you that because I think that's more impactful for the people that are watching who are like, why are we talking about this stuff?
Because that's what we talk about on the podcast.
That's what we do.
Yeah, you do. Because if you're talking to some real estate dude going to say something profound, what I would tell my younger self is, here's the deal. Get in the room with the right people.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's difficult to cut negative people out of your world when they're really important to you.
Oh.
Sorry.
Don't.
I'm sorry,
we
our
got the audience down
production team just
don't. You don't. And this is the piece that I've had a lot of people when I've had this conversation with them. Is they're like, well, I can't cut these people out of my life. These are my people. I'm not asking you to do that. I'm not telling you to do that. I don't cut them out of my life.
Mm-hmm.
I limit the time I give them in my life.
Yeah.
You have to limit that time because the negative impact that it has is detrimental to you.
Yeah.
I still have these people. I never let go of these people. These people have been near and dear to me, and they've been wonderful to me. But I can only limit the time to so much because I have to be positive because I believe if I don't stay
focused
there, I can't impact people the right way. And if I don't impact the right people the right way, then I'm not doing the right thing. And I have a gift that I was given, and I have to share that.
Yeah.
Whatever that means. And some people look at us and go, who's this crazy nut?
No,
but you know that, and it's powerful. I mean, like I think
knowledge is power, right? You've heard all that many times.
Absolutely.
Knowledge is just more words unless you enact and invoke those words.
But
when
words are powerful too.
Now they're powerful.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You have to use them. So then it's powerful. Knowledge is power only if you use it.
Yeah.
So my younger self, get in the room with the right people who bring the positive vibe to that room.
Right.
People who are like you, but make sure you're like them.
Or even make you better.
Okay? Well, that's the point.
Yeah.
Right? I need to be in the room with people who I think are a hell of a lot better than me.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to hope they'll let me in that room. And I do everything I can to get in that room. And that's what changes my life. And then what happens is I'm more impactful to the other people that want to be in the room with me. And that's how it works.
Okay, well,
I think that's like the perfect way to end this. And you know what, Curt, this was like an amazing conversation, and I would love to have a part 2 because that last statement, like the last 2, I think could have opened a whole nother.
Go ahead and end it though, because that camera I think is still going.
Is my camera
not, so go ahead and just. All right, guys. So thank you so much for tuning in to the Realist People in Real Estate podcast. Stay tuned to next week's podcast. Thank you, Curt, for being on the RPR podcast. Really appreciate you.
It was a pleasure.
It was amazing.
You.
Amazing conversation.
You're amazing as
Thank
always.
you so much.
I appreciate you.
Very
guys.
powerful.
Thank you.
Peace.
We'll see you next week.
Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.
It's a wrap.
Ooh. My ears are sweating.